everybody.
Good morning.
And thank you so much. We're good, Diane? Yes. Thank you so much for what's been established here. I feel like this is definitely a co-creation, isn't it? I just think it's beautiful. I loved your meditation. I loved the reading, the music. And what I want to tell you about your wonderful minister, would you like me to tell you a little bit of stuff about him?
You know too much.
Okay. So do you remember earlier when Betty said the way that she handles the volunteers here is she asks, and then people say yes, and then they say, how will we get that done? Or what does that mean? So I was going to be here in the Detroit area for our conference, and I Googled metaphysical bookstores and interfaith centers, and just to see where I might be able to come and be of service. And I found you all, and then I left a voicemail for Reverend David, and basically said, I'm going to be in town. Would you like to have this message be part of your Sunday experience? And what do you think he said?
Yes.
He said yes. So let's appreciate him for just the open heart, right? Because it does take a certain kind of spiritual strength to be able to say yes to someone who's going to come and share with the community about money. And one of the reasons for that is, so how many of you believe you're spiritual beings having a human experience? Okay, so thank you, I believe that too. And how many of you have noticed that when it comes to stuff about money, sometimes it's just a little less hard to experience that sense of, I'm spiritual 24/7. Okay, a few of you are admitting that, thank you. Well, me too. And yet, my practice and my mission and my message and my service in the world is very much that when we fully embrace money as part of our spiritual expression, we can have the peace and the freedom, the joy and the order, the flow and the prosperity, the generosity, the grace, the spiritual qualities that we're all looking for anyway. So I'm very cool and dedicated to that idea, but it can sometimes ruffle some feathers. So I just appreciate you all having, whether you knew it or not, you having a little bit of an open heart to have this happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a few big ideas, and then also make it for those of you that want to come this afternoon from 1 to 3 and share with us at the workshops and ideas that will help you know whether or not that's going to be a fit for you. And I love it because the cognitive, energetic, emotional foundation is already here. So I'm going to build upon that. We're going to look at what is money, who are you, and what's the spiritual idea about money in your life. And I think what you're going to hear from me in the next 15 minutes or so is very much anchoring what you already are believing and experiencing, or possibly stirring the pot a little bit, which is fine too. And part of the invitation is, am I really living this? Because sometimes we come to, I so appreciate you really set that up, that we come to a center like this and we participate in the various activities, not because we didn't know about this, but because we want to be reminded and we want to apply. So we'll begin with what is money? What is money? And I feel like this group is continuing to say yes. I'd like to lead us through a quick reflection to prove to you that you're the one who gives meaning to what money is in your life. Are you up for that? If so, say yes.
Yes.
Everyone will say yes. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead right now and physically put your hand on something that represents your money life. Now that could be pulling out your wallet or your purse or grabbing a credit card or finding some change. If your neighbor doesn't have any, you can hand it to her. And, oh, sir, that's your wallet, not your neighbor's. I might want to share a little bit, but I want everybody to put their hand on something that represents money. And because I want you to make a connection with the money that is in your life right now. And we're gonna do 2 short reflections, and I'm gonna have you call out your experiences on each one. So if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes, and you're holding the thing that represents your money life. And I want you to go ahead and, it's almost like you're putting those words back in the sand of my money, and I'm not gonna, you're now gonna kind of feel into it. I want you to think about your current financial circumstances. So the amount of income that flows through your life, what's in your savings or accounts or portfolio, the real estate you own or don't own, your current financial circumstances. If you're a business owner, think about your revenues or cash flows. So think about your current financial circumstances. Everybody's got that? And now we're going to do 2 reflections. And I'm going to really invite you to let yourself have this reflection. The first reflection is, I'd like you to compare yourself to someone or something outside of you where you think that person's doing better financially. So it could be you compare to the neighbor down the street who appears to have more or sends their kids to a better place or has material things or travels or does something you can't do. Or it could be you're comparing yourself to maybe you give to a cause but there's someone else who gives 10 times as much. I want you to let yourself have this comparison. Someone or something outside of me, could be in the media, that seems to be better. And then I'm going to have you just call out, what are your thoughts and feelings that emerge? So how do you feel? What do you think? Just call out a phrase.
Excited, envy.
Excited, envy, there's no right or wrong for this.
Well, we think that this person has more money and we're a little envious. But we don't really know. All we know is what God has given us.
You don't really know, thank you. And does anybody else, one more thing? Lucky,
Unfair.
unfair?
Anger.
All right, so thank yourself for doing that, and shake a little bit. And you're still holding on to the thing that represents your financial circumstance. And now you're going to do your second reflection. And go ahead and let yourself do this one too. So let yourself compare to the 1 to 2 billion people who will struggle today for clean water, safe place to sleep. Will their kids make it? There are people who have objectively or appears to be less financial goods and circumstances. So when you compare to those, what feelings or thoughts emerge?
Fortunate.
Fortunate, sad, lucky,
Guilt.
Compassion.
compassion,
Reach out.
reach out. All right, shake those off and put your money back in your wallet or purse and, sir, that's your wallet, not your neighbor's. Go ahead and put your stuff back. And what did you notice about those 2 different reflections, right? So your financial circumstances, unless you all are on a day trading platform that within 30 seconds really changes stuff between when we first started and when we didn't. Most of you, your financial circumstances didn't change, but what did change? Perspective, attitude, experience. This might seem so simple. So this is a group that's pretty much, you've got some more advanced practice here, but I want you to really catch it, how simple that is. So the money didn't change, but your perspective did. And we really want to be clear, it's not bad to be, to have one feeling and good to have another. It's just that it changes based on what you're thinking, feeling, and projecting. So this is the first big idea. Many people think the money or the stuff has power. And what I want to invite you into is, what if money was just a neutral substance? And part of what I've done in my research and my study is I'm really committed, and part of, also you all are pretty, you get it. Part of why you're here listening to me and what you're catching from me, it's like the words I'm saying, but also it's the vibration. And my vibration is, I'm God positive, I'm spiritually connected, and I'm money positive. And I find those things very integrated. So sometimes all people do in my presence is you're sort of like, she really, she's into both things. So that's pretty much what I'm into, and that's partly what I'm bringing. I study people who I call the conscious wealth creators, the folks who have now on the outside, money and means, and who I perceive as being connected to a vision filled with value, making a difference in the world. And here's what I find over and over again, is that often those people, they'll say things like, it's not really about the money, it's what's the money for? The money is just a tool. The money is just a vehicle. It allows me to give my gifts or express what I want to express. The money doesn't have the power. I put the power into it. Does that feel true? So that's the first thing to try on. What if money was just a neutral substance? The meaning about money is powerful. And you and I, we're the meaning makers. Money is neutral. Like language, or technology, or food. Those things can be used or applied for the sacred or the profane, for the trivial or the transformative. We're the ones who say, we look at the digits on the computer screen, or we see the pieces of paper, we're the ones who say that's a lot, or that's a little. We're the ones who decide, oh, she makes good money, oh, he doesn't have a very big portfolio, and really, ultimately, not only do we, I love this idea that we don't even really know, what's big or little by looking at it, is that we're the ones who say, this is big, this is little. So the fact that we're the meaning makers is where the power is. And just even having that, I invite you to take that home as a way to transform things about your money life. Because a lot of people, this really feels like it comes up to say, a lot of people have subtle stuff around rich and poor for themselves and for others. And the subtle stuff can show up like, well, the rich, they're greedy, and so resenting them is, that's kind of okay. And even with a pretty, evolved conversation about life and oneness and unity, sometimes we find ourselves with subtle ideas like that. Well, they probably got it from some way that we have judgment about. And even if we have any of that going on, any of that kind of contemptuous stuff, we're making meaning about money that in many ways, it's not just that it separates us from money, it separates us from our brothers and sisters in a way that doesn't reflect the truth of who we are. And then on the other side, we're the ones who make the meaning that says the poor, well, they're needy. They should be pitied. And with that idea, then we have a sense of almost like a weird superiority or a kind of a urgency for codependence that doesn't really help the poor, and it doesn't really help us either, because it's another form of separation. So these are subtle ideas. Am I stirring a pot, or are you all full submarine? I know we're going to hear comments. Okay, so people are either tracking with this or not. That's okay. But I invite you that you're the meaning maker in your money life, about what you think about brothers and sisters out there and what you think about yourself. And just having that as a tool, like, you know what? I'm the meaning maker about what's happening financially can be very powerful. And I want to go a little deeper about who you are. So it's so beautiful that this entire community's practice is based on we're spiritual beings in human expression, that the challenges we face on the human plane are when they come up as challenges, they're opportunities to heal a sense of separation from the truth of who we are. And we're always on a journey of that. In this form, we're always revealing more of the divine. What I love about the idea of including money in your spiritual journey is that you're already good at it somewhere else in your life. So already I know that each one of you is your own mental equivalent. So I know for those of you that know the science of mind teaching, that's an Ernest Holmes phrase. Already in your life, you have some material area of expression where you get that the divine is there. So for example, we can look in the eyes of a beautiful child, or when we interact with food, we can do it in a sacred way. Or when we see nature's beauty, we can see the hand of the divine is here. Or we look at a beautiful piece of artwork and we can really see this is a material thing, it's going to come and go, but I can sense that God's presence is here. If you can have a spiritual experience of any area of your life, then you can do it with your money. If you can feel like there's enough, I'm not taking any from anyone else, around friendships, or around seeing every body temple whole, no matter what its size, or condition, or if you can have that kind of like, I got it, the spiritual truth in any area, decide for yourself, you know what, if I can do it here, I can do it with my money. Sometimes I find people disempower themselves by having the idea like, I have stuff around money. And I think you all get it, right, that a truth like you're worthy and valuable and at one with the divine and made in its image and likeness, that truth is only real for you if it's practiced. And part of what we do to create a reality for ourselves is how we think, how we emotionally respond to those thoughts, and then what conversation we're in. So I invite you as a community to support each other in being empowered about money, right? So if you hear your friends say, well, you know, I have so much stuff about money, or well, you know how it is, people like fill in the blank can't get fill in the blank because of the fill in the blank. If you hear that kind of thing, I invite you to really be loving with each other to say, you know what, I hear you, and I'm wondering if that's really what you want to be affirming for yourself. So that might be a little bit in your face for the Interfaith Center, but that kind of, if you want to pull each other up, that's a way to do it. And then the final idea I want to share with you is what's the spiritual truth, or what's the God idea about how money and finances express in our lives. So this is a very simple principle. There's spiritual source and material channels. And what was so beautiful, and you heard this, you know, in our reading and in our meditation, is that, and I think you all get this, but it's a nice way to really anchor. Spiritual source is infinite, eternal, invisible, ever creative, and we're made in its image and likeness. And across the world's religious traditions, and in a variety of spiritual practices, the idea that we as individuals are made in the image and likeness of that spiritual source is found. And so you'll hear a Christian scripture that says the kingdom of heaven is within. The Hindus would say, thou art that. There's the idea in the Jewish faith that manna falls from heaven to supply humanity. There's that spiritual idea that our expression replicates the nature of the divine. Now, the way that I see people who have a really empowered spirituality about money, the way I see them working with that idea is this. The material channels, they come and go. And how do you know if something's a material channel? If it has any kind of beginning, middle, or an end. So what that means is the generous lover, the fabulous real estate portfolio, a giant downline in my business, a big old mailing list, a secure job, a retirement portfolio. Any of those things inherently have a beginning, middle, and an end. Even if they're fabulous, even if they're natural, even if they're, you know, if they came from a high vibration creation, if there's something in the outer world, they're going to come and they're going to go. Now, that doesn't mean they're not of the divine. What it means is the outer forms are the way the divine is expression in this moment, but it's an expression. It's going to evolve, it's going to come, it's going to go. What gets people in trouble is looking only at the external, which is so much what we've been reading, looking only at the covering of the sword, right? Looking only at the external, judging that good or bad, and thinking that our security comes only from the external. So I think you all get this, right? That we often think, I've got a money problem, therefore I might need more what? Yeah, it's like, I've got a money problem, I need more money. And yet, and here's what I really want you to catch, what you'll catch from me that's a little different from others, is like, I'm cool if you get more money. If you got a money problem and you get more money. I'm just saying, what you really have is a spiritual problem. And the money coming in may absolutely shift some circumstances, could be very positive. There's, no thing wrong with that. I'm saying, lean in. And yet, what people really have is a spiritual problem, and they're longing for a spiritual solution. And something in us knows that. Now, many experience it as, I feel like I'm worried and upset and angry and resentful and overwhelmed about money, either a tiny bit or a lot. And whether it's a tiny bit or a lot, it is not the highest vibration of mental and emotional investment that I could possibly make. We get that, right? Worrying about money all the time is not a high practice. So people will think like, gosh, if I just had the right amount of money, this would make the worry go away. Or if my spouse or the government or the jobs or the real estate or the whatever would be different, then my money situation would be resolved. When really, what we're longing for is the sense of peace and freedom and order and flow now about our money. It's very much like the be grateful now, energetic, is when you have it in the now, then your circumstances are not dictating your experience of wealth. And in the now, when that happens, everything shifts for you, and your security is not dependent on the amount of stuff you have. From that place is where you can really, what I would say, lead your experience of wealth with unbounded opportunity. So the real tip, I'll review the three things we've talked about, and then I'm going to give an idea of what we'll cover in the workshop today. So what is money? Money is neutral. Meaning is powerful. You and I are the meaning makers about money. Who are you? You're infinite, eternal, divine. And if you can have a spiritual expression through any area of the material world, you can do it with money. And then this last piece has been, what's the divine idea? Spiritual source and material channels. And my strong recommendation is don't get seduced by the idea that having or not having a material channel defines you. Instead, anchor in the spiritual qualities and express them through the material channels. So that's like a foundation of a way to think about spirituality and money. Now, for those of you that want to take this deeper, and particularly around a particular goal or idea or thing in your money life, like I've got to forgive mother about money, or I want to bring my business, my healing practice to the next level, but I notice that I keep taking all of these scholarship students and I never seem to be able to price my services well. Like if you have something very specific you want to work with, that's what we'll work on in the workshop. And I want to show you the handout that we'll use, and I have extras of these. Maybe not quite enough for everyone, but if you know that you can't make the workshop and you want to be able to get this, I'll either give it to you digitally or a physical one. But this is a money map. And part of what we'll work on is, there's good news and there's bad news. So this is a pretty sophisticated group. Would you like your good news first or your bad news first?
Good.
I think that it's the same. So the good news is that if most people, even if they hear a little message like this and it seems inspiring, most people won't actually change their experience. They'll usually just replicate the financial experiences of their past unless they work on three critical areas. And the good news is, so the bad news is not changing the past, and the good news is you can. And the three critical areas that are on the money map is your spirituality about money, your beliefs about money, and your habits with money. And in each of those areas, there's a trap or a state of challenge, then there's a spiritual principle, and there's practical tools. So we'll walk through a particular goal of yours using the money map and really applying it to your situation. And we'll work in particular with your spiritual practice, with financial forgiveness, and with your money behaviors. So you'll have a plan for leaving here. So that's for those of you that want to take it deeper. But I will tell you, whether you come to the workshop or not, I'd love to get a hug, and I know we're going to hear some feedback here. I'm happy to hear and support you. I also have I have a pretty substantial online community. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and I serve people literally, you'd be excited by this, all over the globe. People care about this message. So we have an online community that includes people from Australia and the UK and Canada, everywhere. People care about the idea of having a spiritual approach to their wealth. So I do have a place to take them. If you want to stay in touch by email, we can do that. And then the final thing I'll say is that this is an affirmation that one of our community members created. It says, "I love and respect myself enough to live a financially prosperous and responsible life." And really that's, I would say, like what I'm a yes for all of you, is that your self-love, your desire to have your spiritual expression be really glorified and triumphant, that includes a financial life that is prosperous and responsible. And because you're so powerful, you'll be the one who gets to decide exactly what that looks like. All right, peace and blessings.